what happens when high school kids actually have time to go and pursue their passions and their interests, and they're not just stuck doing homework and sitting in class and trying to rush through their days? I'll tell you what happens. Amazing things. And we have a series that I am so excited about. I am talking with several of our high school students who go to Alpha High School, and we're going to learn about the things they can do when they're able to crush their academics in only 3 hours a day and then have time to pursue their passions and interests. Welcome to the first part in this series.
Welcome to the Future of Education podcast, hosted by Mackenzie Price. Mackenzie is the founder of a revolutionary new school model that's disrupting education through AI. Join us as we discuss the latest in education innovation.
Welcome to Future of Education.
Thank you so much.
So tell me about you.
Yeah, so I'm Alex. I'm 16 years old. This is my first year at Alpha High, and I'm a junior.
And tell me what your experience at your old school was like compared to Alpha.
So my old school was a public magnet school, top 35 in the nation.
Wow, really good school.
Yeah, extremely good school, very rigorous academics. I was working, 8-hour school days and at least 4 hours of homework a night and studying.
Oh my goodness, really?
So yeah, the
How
transition.
much sleep were you getting?
Very little, 3 to 5 every night.
Which, by the way, is like kind of typical for kids in high school these days, especially if they're kids who are engaged in their work. And it sounds like you were.
Yeah, so I was trying to crush in my passion projects after I did all my homework. And
Impossible, right?
Exactly. So that would leave no time for me to get any sleep, talk to friends. It was a struggle, and it was not pleasant. And so the switch from doing 12 hours of busy work to 3 hours of efficient, useful work and having time to actually work on, my passions.
Is that really the comparison you would say? 12 hours of busy work compared to 3 hours of focused work for your academics?
So at my old school, I would spend 8 hours at school and 4 hours after school doing my homework.
Wow.
Now at Alpha, I can do that 12 hours of work in 3 hours and 2 times as fast.
Wow.
So I have all that time in the afternoon to work on my masterpiece.
A fourth of the time spent on academics, and you're still crushing it.
For at least my school, it's a fourth of the time, which is absolutely insane. And I can work 2 times as fast. I can literally do my AP US history probably 2 or 3 times as fast as my old school is.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, actually, I will say I remember hearing stories of kids like in their AP courses having to color things and like, doing things that you're like, why are they coloring? They're in high school. So we have gotten rid of a lot of that busy work, right?
Yeah, and the amount of time it takes to do one unit with the apps that we have is absolutely insane to me because you usually span that over, a couple weeks or even a month.
Mm-hmm.
There's 9 units, 9 months in school. It's one every month. I can do a unit within a couple of days, which is insane.
Okay, so with all of this time that you've freed up, how do you spend the rest of the day?
So I'm building my masterpiece, which is Barry, an AI-powered plushie line for teen mental health.
So for those of you who may not know what a masterpiece is, our high school students are able to spend their afternoons working on a project that they're really interested in. This is really meant to be the intersection of their passions and their talents. It's meant to be what we call an Olympic level masterpiece, which means it's as impressive as being an Olympian.
So the whole idea is that you can sit down at any time of the day, talk to this stuffed animal about
a stuffed
your struggles.
animal.
Yes.
Okay, so the stuffed animal's name is Barry.
Yes.
Okay, and it's a stuffed animal that you're saying you can talk to?
Correct.
Okay, well, I used to talk to my stuffed animals when I was little. Is that the same idea? What's different?
No, there's an AI chip inside of it, so it
Okay.
can actually have real conversations with you.
Really?
Yes. So my goal is to kind of build up every teen's self-awareness so that later on in life when you're going through hard times, it's really easy to turn that around or reframe it.
Wow. Okay, so Alex, there's a lot of concern around if you're saying, okay, my kid could be talking to this plushie that is giving them advice on AI. How are you vetting this advice and making sure the AI is giving them sound information?
That's a good question. A lot of people are scared of hallucinations. What if AI tells you the wrong thing? And so I've made sure to make the data that the AI is feeding off of a closed loop. So I'm creating a list of playbooks or frameworks on how to approach your problems on a daily basis with therapists, with psychologists.
Okay, so if a kid comes and says, hey, I'm struggling with a friend at school, and we're in a fight, your AI plushie is going to a library of information?
Exactly. And it's not pulling from, random Reddit threads or random sites on the internet. It's pulling from these therapist vetted, these psychologist vetted playbooks that's
Wow.
specifically for teens, and it's ultra personalized to you.
What drew you to want to do this AI plushie?
That's a great question. So when I was younger, I went to therapy and I honestly didn't really find it very useful. I had a hard time staying accountable after sessions.
Plus, therapy is expensive.
It's super expensive, $150 to $200 an hour.
Wow.
Which is insane. And after, going to therapy for a bit, I went out and stopped doing it because I didn't find it useful. Fast forward a couple months and a couple years, I went to my old school and I was very stressed all the time. Think about it. If you have a test every week, there's a constant cortisol release, which is really bad for your mental health, but also really bad for your physical health. And on top of that, I was getting no sleep. And this wasn't just me, it was all my friends. And so after seeing all the problems my friends were going through and thinking that they had to suffer these 4 years of high school in order to get into a good university, I thought to myself, okay, therapy is pretty inaccessible, pretty stigmatized. How can I make something that's more accessible for them and for me?
Wow, because teen mental health is an epidemic.
Yeah.
And there isn't enough resource to go around, and you're helping solve that problem.
Yeah, so instead of the $150 to $200 an hour, it's a $200 flat time fee and $20 a month.
Wow. And the ability for kids to be able to have access to this whenever they need it.
Exactly.
That's incredible. You're 16 years old, and in the afternoons at school, you're working on manufacturing a prototype for an AI plushie. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. So for my first prototype, I just kind of grabbed a plushie around here and stuck a computer chip inside of it. But now I'm calling people at Spin Master, for example, the people that make all the Paw Patrol plushies, to see if they can design my plushie and manufacture it at a high rate and put the computer chip inside and distribute it to all the teens I want to.
And then what else are you going to be doing with the plushies? I've heard you've got some other projects along with your AI mental health.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm actually partnering with influencers. So right now, the influencers I have around 4.5 million followers across all platforms. And so I'm making a version of Barry for each one of them. So for example, one's going to be around self-confidence, and it's going to be a cat called Melly. And I'll have different versions for each influencer I partner with. My spiky POV that I've kind of created.
POV, point of view.
Point of view.
And it's spiky. Let's
Correct.
hear it. Come on.
So here's my contrarian thought.
Okay.
I believe that the combination of AI, or what I call large language models, LLMs,
Okay.
and transitional objects like stuffed animals can actually be better than therapists for teens.
Wow.
But that doesn't mean I'm going to cut therapists from doing their job. There's a lot of different types of therapy. But after I did a lot of user interviews with the teens that I wanted to provide Barry to, I realized that there are a lot of gaps within therapy right now. So the first is the actionability gap. Like I said earlier, it was hard for me and it's hard for others to stay accountable and act on the advice they get in therapy. A lot of people actually don't want to go to therapy because, of course, the price, but also the stigma, because maybe they don't want to talk to a random adult, because maybe they don't feel comfortable talking about their problems to some random person.
Yeah. Saying I have to go to therapy, that's never like the thing you want to have to say when it's like, oh, I can't go, I'm going to my therapist.
Exactly. It seems really severe when a lot of these daily problems are just like, I'm stressed about a test or comparing myself to someone else, not I'm suffering with depression. And so after realizing all of these, different problems with therapy, and not to mention during therapy, a lot of people said it was hard to find quality in it. Like there's a quality control problem and they don't
Yeah,
find it
not all
valuable.
therapists are great.
And that's okay, but I want to make sure that everyone's getting the advice that they need. And so I'm working with therapists in order to build my AI for them. And so therapists are not going to not have a job anymore. AI isn't replacing any jobs. I just believe that this combination is especially good for teens.
Yeah.
Another reason is because of transitional objects, something I mentioned. So stuffed animals or jewelry are examples of transitional objects, and there's neuroscience behind why they provide a lot of warmth and comfort, especially for teens.
I can see therapists even using your plushies with their patients, right?
Yes, exactly. Maybe you get some great advice during a session, Barry's listening to you, and you kind of forget something. Barry can remind you maybe late at night, or maybe Barry can give you the action items that you need in order to, build up those new habits.
Yeah, I can totally see it as a way that therapists could even encourage the plushie to say, hey, have we practiced our blank exercises today, whatever it is that we're doing?
Exactly. I think teens struggle with mental health more than any other age group in the world. And there's a couple reasons for that. First is the COVID pandemic. After COVID, people were lost on what to do. They were alone. And it hurts teens the most because this is their prime time in high school. And if they're struggling in this COVID epidemic during middle school, then they have no idea what to do in high school. Another reason is social media. You're constantly surrounded by dopamine hits. So your baseline level of dopamine is going to be a lot less than it usually should be, which means you're going to experience things at a lower level of happiness pretty much. So
Wow.
you're less likely to be happy on a day-to-day basis.
So social media is literally making kids less happy.
It's changing your brain, rewiring your brain. And not to mention, it's also surrounding you with people who seem to be living their perfect life. And so one of the biggest problems that teens face is social comparison and looking for that validation from other people.
So, Alex, now that you're at a school where you have time to pursue this project that you're at, tell me how you feel.
I am so much happier. If you couldn't tell before, 12 hours of work, 3 to 5 hours of sleep is not a very sustainable life. At my old school, I was chained to my work. I felt like a 40-year-old man working, 9 to 5 plus some, and it was unsustainable. I couldn't get any sleep. I was constantly stressed. I couldn't have any time to hang out with my friends. And whenever I did hang out with my friends, I was always worried about the next thing. And so now I can do all my academics in 3 hours, and I'm working on things that I actually care about. So I have free time to, hang with my friends. But usually it's me and my friends after school working on our masterpiece.
Because you found something you love to do.
Exactly. I can't stop thinking about it, but in a good way.
That's great. But most high school kids are struggling just to figure out how to pass their next test. How do you know how to go and create a manufacturing line and have this built out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's two parts to that. The first is a lot of people have limiting beliefs. So a lot of people think that they can't really do all these huge things. I have this huge goal of getting 100 million people by 2035. And my parents and most people are going to be like, no, you can't do that. But at Alpha, they think I can.
Kids are limitless. Yeah.
Kids are actually limitless. And the second reason is because of the mentorship I have here. The guides have helped me through all of this. I didn't know how to call a manufacturer, the Paw Patrol guys, and be like, hey, can you design my plushies? Like, maybe a couple weeks ago, but I learned I can use AI, I can ask my mentors, and that's kind of the reason I'm able to do all this.
Yeah, I think we give high support, and we also hold you to high expectations because we know that you're capable.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, Alex, I am so excited to see Barry in action. I think it's going to be such a great resource for so many kids around the world. Thank you so much for being on Future of Education. It's so cool to hear about your masterpiece project, and I cannot wait to see my own little Barry.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Mackenzie Price and the Future of Education podcast. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, now is the time to do it, so you can stay up to date on all our episodes. You can connect with Mackenzie on social media and be part of our daily conversation over on Instagram at futureof_education. For more info about the show and our guests, you can always visit futureofeducationpod.com. Lastly, if you're loving what you're learning, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back in your feed soon, but until then, remember, kids are limitless, and it's our job to unlock their potential.